Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I am your host, the Big and Furry Bovine. Over the course of the next hour or so, we'll be talking about the upcoming football game on Sunday with the Browns playing the Texans in Houston, and there's a lot to talk about. There are things, I guess, that I don't, at this point, talking about who did what and to whom and why and all of this seems rather late in the game for that. But everybody's talking about this game because Deshaun Watson is coming back to play. And he's been out for 700 plus days, and you know the story. I had a very interesting back and forth with Benjamin Albright of iHeartRadio, KOA Radio in the greater Denver area. Something that he said kind of struck a nerve in me, and somebody asked him, Denver fan, about difficulties with Russell Wilson, and that it wasn't working out, and that the Broncos need to do something because it looks like he's aged quickly, and he's like, 32 years old going on 42 years old. Things aren't going well for the Broncos, all that fun stuff. And Benjamin Albright defended Russell Wilson this way. Well, it's not like he solicited sex from people on the internet and then proceeded to say whatever he was going to say, which was obviously a Deshaun Watson reference. And I decided just to ask him a few questions, to which he got a little bit anxious with me. He doesn't know who I am, and I really don't know who he is. But basically, I pointed out that there are a lot of claims and a lot of things that didn't make sense in the whole Deshaun Watson case, and that I don't have answers to them, and maybe, he'd like to explain it to me. And he just said that everything that I was saying, questions about whether the women were licensed or not, to which all he would say is, all of them were either licensed or on their way to becoming licensed, which I don't know what the hell that means. I'm on my way to be an astronaut. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why he was exposing himself when he was supposed to be draped properly by professional massage therapists, and why, when he did expose himself, why they didn't immediately terminate the session. There are a lot of questions that I have and continue to have about this case, but the case was decided. It was settled. Benjamin Albright decided to include this little nugget with me. Buddy, I'm the one that broke the story. I've covered it top the bottom. He meant top to bottom. I can tell you, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about and are repeating laughably false things that are posted on Reddit. First of all, I don't do Reddit. The only thing I do Reddit for might be for some technological things that I don't understand, but not for sports. Heavens no. Then he says, have you even read the filings? We had an attorney on the air who read the filings and analyzed it for us. I don't dare try to interpret those types of things by myself. But I started looking at this, buddy, I'm the one that broke the story. So I thought, that's interesting. I've never heard of Benjamin Albright before. And he may be a very talented guy, and I'm not getting down on him. But I know that he works at KOA Radio, which is a good radio station, Denver way. And that's all I know about him. I decided to look back in his Twitter, and it's really interesting. This tweet that he tweeted from March 16th, 2021, that he writes, so this bombshell just came across my desk. And it's a story that Tony Busby was announcing he was representing the women in the lawsuit. I mean, dude, if you broke the story, how is that coming across your desk and you didn't know about it? I think everybody misrepresents things to whatever advantage it is to themselves. Here's another tweet that he said. This was back in, I want to date this properly, back in March of 2022, when it was uncertain whether the Browns were really serious or whether Deshaun Watson and the Texans were serious about the Browns. Don Fowler, just a Browns fan, tweeted this on March the 14th of this year. Supposedly, the Jets offered 3 first and 2 second rounders and Zach Wilson for Watson, and that the Browns offered 2 number ones, 1 fifth, and Kareem Hunt, Greg Newsome, and Baker Mayfield, and the Texans said no. Benjamin Albright followed it up by saying, that's not the offer I heard. The Texans didn't say no. Watson did. So this guy's really on top of things now, isn't he? I get tired of people acting bigger than they are and talking down to the public. I mean, you do have a responsibility to, at the very least, not use something to bolster your own career, for goodness sakes. And I think there's a lot of this going on, unfortunately. I think the story is, I know I'm freezing, and this is a problem, again, with StreamYard, and they're not fixing the problem. And I may have to switch methodologies again, because they've taken on a new technology called live streams, and I think that it's messed up broadcasts like this. And there is nothing wrong with my signal whatsoever, and I'm very sorry that this is happening. But I want to finish what I have to say on the program today. And is it interrupting the audio or just the video? Let me know what's going on with that. I would appreciate it, because I have to report that to the people at StreamYard. This is the week that Deshaun Watson comes back, and it's not the week that I am going to judge him as far as what he does. The audio is good. At least you'll be hearing what I'm saying. Thank you, Amsterdam. You don't have to see this ugly mug, though. That's not necessary. My feeling about playing a guy who hasn't played for over 700 days is that his timing is going to be mucked up, and I think that it's going to be a challenge. And just like I believe it's a challenge when you only have 2 preseason games, and that's that. You go into the regular season, like the first week of the season this year looked pretty raggedy. A lot of teams look raggedy. And this is not unusual. I would imagine that knowing Kevin Stefanski is going to simplify the playbook so that there are a lot of practice scripted plays that will make Deshaun Watson comfortable, so that standing back in the pocket for long periods of times and trying to throw the ball deep or to do all kinds of multiple reads with losing track thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. I'm supposed to be running this at 7:20. And again, something mighty fishy is up. I'm doing max headroom, right? The issue is, can we keep him in a contained environment until he feels comfortable with the timing and speed of the game? When you're back in the pocket, the game moves so much faster on the field than it does during a practice, for goodness sakes, that the longer he holds onto the ball, the more problems he's going to have, because he's just not used to that. He's not used to getting hit after 700 plus days either. So that's how I see the offense trying to get through this. And I do believe, and I don't think you have to be a genius to figure out, that Deshaun Watson is is more talented than Jacoby Brissett. So, you can take that for what it's worth. This is even worse to me than Benjamin Albright trying to go back in the past and booster his resume or bolster his resume by saying, well, I broke that story. Terry Pluto's article is just as disturbing as anything. Deshaun Watson's suspension over, why I'm willing to give him a fresh start with the Browns. And throughout this article, it is the most wimpy, apologetic article that you could imagine. Listen to some of these quotes. Some media members and fans won't be happy with his refusal to answer questions about his conduct with massage therapists and settling 24 civil suits. As you read what I write next, Terry Pluto says, keep in mind that I've been one of the biggest critics of the trade bringing Watson to the Browns from Houston. I was outraged over the $230 million contract, the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history. All of this apologetic stuff. The price of 6 draft picks, including 3 first-rounders, for a guy facing suspension. And by the way, this deal gives Watson a no-trade clause. That's what he had in Houston, which set up his ability to negotiate the new contract with the Browns. I even wrote 2 columns before the deal was finalizing, begging the Browns not to do it. I didn't like the deal for 3 reasons. A, the contract. B, the trade, and C, the off-field problems that would fracture the fan base. The fan base has been fractured for decades. Would somebody wake up and smell the coffee? Please. God, that's stupid. I'm not a Watson apologist, Terry Pluto says, but I am a realist. So with all that off the top of his chest, then off his shoulders, then he goes on to say, he's going to give us a chance kind of to win, but I'm not real happy about, I'm going to make this perfectly clear. I am a Cleveland sports fan. I support the players on the team. Many times those players work hard but aren't that good, or are really good and don't work that hard. And I will be critical no matter what. Whether it's Sendejo arriving late on the scene or Myles Garrett winded after 3 minutes. I will critique players' performances individually in games, irrespective of what their background is. I mean, look, we drafted Kellen Winslow Jr., and I think he has ended up spending more time in prison than he did in the NFL. This isn't the first time teams around the league or a team in the league has drafted somebody who's ended up being nothing but trouble. It wouldn't be the first time. I don't worry about shit like this. And the reason I don't worry about it is I'm more concerned with the outcome of the games, who plays well, who doesn't play well. And I've been doing this shit for 19 years. And I want the Browns to win. No different this week than it was the last week and the week before and the week before. Nobody gets more upset when they find new ways of losing than I do. In fact, I'm convinced that a percentage of the population who tunes into this program is waiting for me to drop over of a heart attack sometimes on the post-game show, because I'm so animated and flustered with all of the unique ways they find to lose. But I want to say off the top that I'm not ashamed that the Browns got this quarterback, this player. Deshaun Watson is talented. That's more than we can say for the vast majority of quarterbacks who have played for the Browns. And for so many people who were saying Baker Mayfield got the shaft in Cleveland and all the stuff that was being said, he turned out to be not that good. If he were as good as a lot of the fanboys would suggest he would have done better than he has with the Panthers. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. Do I miss Baker Mayfield? No, because I think it was an ill match from the get-go. A lockdown offense in which he could not oblige his way out took away the power that he had over the lazy Freddie Kitchens offense, where he could just write up a play in the dirt, basically, and run it. He had one successful year, but I think after that he wanted to improvise on his own. He got hurt, and he hasn't been the same since. And if Deshaun Watson comes out and really plays poorly, at first I will say he hasn't played in God knows how long. After that, I'll just say, well, maybe this was a mistake. But not for the reasons that people who are going all high and mighty are suggesting. He's either the player we think he is and can be, or he's not. We're going to find out. But I sure like the upside more than I like the Jacoby Brissett upside. Don't forget, 4-7 with the Browns is not Jacoby Brissett's fault. The defense had a lot to do with that. But Jacoby Brissett put up career numbers for himself. 64.7% completion accuracy is a high spot for him. An 89.1 quarterback rating, career high for him. He did everything that could have been asked of him, and that's great. So, from the top of my head to the soles of my feet, I am a Cleveland sports fan. I cheer on the Guardians, I cheer on the Cavaliers, and I cheer on the Browns. But it doesn't stop me from being critical, and anybody who listened to the program would know that. David Njoku is out. He's not going to be playing. And I don't know what happened to his other knee. It's not the same knee that he hurt before. But his other knee is hurt. So he's officially ruled out. So one less target for Deshaun Watson. I'll continue on in this vein. Headline: as Deshaun Watson prepares to take the field, many fans say they're turning away. Well, just do it. Don't tell me about it. Why, I oughta. Just do it. There are people who just turn their backs on their team and decide they're going to cheer for the Panthers because that's where Baker goes, or just decide to become Lakers fans because that's where LeBron went. That's fine. But don't come climbing back on the bandwagon when we start winning. Don't do that. That's irritating to people who have suffered for as long as people like I have. That's just not good. But I mean, right off the bat, the tone of every printed article I was reading all over the internet, many fans say they're turning away. Well, I mean, my God, they leave the stadium in the third quarter. They don't get to the stadium until the middle of the first quarter. This is not the old dog pound. This is not what made Cleveland famous. Yeah, this isn't the fan base is there, but they can't afford to be in that stadium. All the fancy people are in the stadium. And, it's already over in the third quarter. Let's beat the traffic home. They don't give a shit. I give a shit. And I give a shit when people start reporting things that are bogus. God damn it, Benjamin Albright. Why do you think they could not get criminal charges against Deshaun Watson? You're asking me, calling me a buddy. I'm not your buddy. I'm just asking you openly. Why couldn't they impose and get criminal charges against Deshaun Watson? And it's because the story from the women had more holes in it than Swiss cheese. That's why. And even their attorney knew it because he went down the money path real quickly. You know what turns me away? People are filing in on Sunday into the Texans stadium. There will be 60,000 people there. And many people will be screaming obscenities at Deshaun Watson, just like in Jacksonville. And it's interesting because Jacksonville is just south of the Georgia border. And very recently, a series of anti-Semitic slurs appearing on signs hung over highways, on overhangs, and also on moving signs. I mean, regular permanent signs programmed on the signs blaming the Jews for problems. This is Jacksonville. And if you remember in the preseason, you sick fuck, you sick fuck, you sick fuck. That was the cheer that they were saying in Jacksonville. I don't know. It seems to me they've had a lot of sick fucks then playing. I mean, where's the Urban Meyer? You sick fuck. You sick fuck. I mean, let's be honest about Jacksonville. As a football franchise, have been negligible. But so many professional football teams, of which right now I can say they resemble one, but in the years where they didn't resemble one, lots of players came in to play in their stadium who were a lot sicker than Deshaun Watson. I'd say somebody punching a woman in the face in an elevator, knocking her out cold and dragging her out by the feet, that's worse. Yep. Kicking a woman when she's on the floor, yep, I'd say that's worse. Standing with a knife at the scene of a crime, yes, I'd say that's worse. Where a guy winds up dead, yes, I'd say that's worse. Beating your child around the genitalia with a switch, I'd say that's worse. Why this? I'll let you decide for yourself. Why this? This headline. He might start hearing this in Cleveland. Fans believe Browns faithful will turn on sick Deshaun Watson if the quarterback does not perform well. You know something? I don't know what's become of us as a society. I remember when I was given the opportunity to actually break a story and I refused to do it. That was Delonte West's story. I've talked about this on the air numerous times. When this is long before, that he ended up living on the street, homeless. Delonte West was a fine basketball player for the Boston Celtics, played for the Cavaliers, and he was mentally ill. And it was a horrible thing to see what he had become. I didn't want to break a story, and it got worse, and I knew that he was basically bipolar. I was hearing about incidents, but I refused to talk about it on the air. To me, mental illness of any sort is not something that, I'm not going to hold Junior Seau accountable for the things that he was doing when he was brain damaged. It's just not something I would do. But it turns out that there are going to be 60,000 fans in Houston who are going to be chanting ugly things. And I guarantee you, a good number of people out of those 60,000 have done something worse than Deshaun Watson did. They've stolen. They've assaulted somebody. They've ripped somebody off. They've lied to their family, stranded their family, have left their wife and kids. All kinds of people in that 60,000, and I know one of them who invited 10 of the women up in the booth Their attorney, Tony Busby, has already had legal trouble for being a thoroughly dishonest person. It just amazes me. It just amazes me, the whole thing. That people today, if you believe that a man is sick, why would you invite all these people, and the organization has made comments saying, we expect vocal fireworks when this game goes down. And they're not coming out and saying, we want you to chant, you sick fuck. I mean, the Texans would do anything for a win. They only have one this season. I don't know. Why urge a bunch of people, and why would people feel that there's any catharsis in their life to come to a sporting event just to antagonize somebody who settled a case? Why keep the potato hot? What's the reason? We are a mean and cruel society. We do not understand people with problems. And it's twofold. We don't want to accept responsibility or accountability for women who are damaged in crimes. But you notice nobody is saying, except for people who are a little bit off the deep end, that they were prostitutes. I think judgment has a lot to do with things. And I think that if Desiree Washington went into a hotel room alone with Mike Tyson, she didn't deserve what she got. But the judgment wasn't very good. But she was young, Mr. Moohead. Yeah, I know she was young, but she was in beauty pageants, and I'm quite sure that she'd seen a way around the back 40 a few times. Judgment has a lot to do with things. Deshaun Watson not only has bad judgment, the Houston Texans, who are urging fans to come to do this nonsense, they were the ones who were paying him and supporting him and getting the hotel rooms for him to do this stuff. That's a sick organization. But you never hear anybody turn on the ownership, do you? But that's just as sick. There's a lot of sickness in professional sports. Kyrie Irving is sick. Music industry, Kanye West is sick. This is not entertainment. This is a person's life that's going down the shitter because they're not taking their medication. And for Deshaun Watson at 26 years of age, it's somebody who does not properly respect women, and he has to be able to accomplish this in their lives. In his life, he has to come to grips with where he made mistakes in this process. And if he can't do that, he will not be a successful quarterback anywhere. He'll never be able to live down what he did. Does that mean that's what I hope happens to him? Heavens, no. Michael Vick killed dogs for money. Better call Saul. He came back to play in the NFL, and yes, there were people who were animal rights activists who would line up outside the stadium saying dog killer, signs saying dog killer. But you know something? He admitted to it. He was a dog killer. Do not call a man a rapist if he did not rape somebody. Come on. Are people really that angry? Unreal. And that's what I can't get into about this game. This is not a morality play. It's a sporting event. The people who are right in the world don't always win. Bill Belichick is proof of that. Dishonest people win all the time. Elon Musk is proof of that. Bill Clinton is proof of that. Donald Trump is proof of that. I don't know. To me, it's just anger. And I get it, Tom. I get it. But you know something? If we lose our humanity just because the economy is out of shape, not doing so well, what does that say about us? What does that say about us as people? We're like the Spartans. You know, we don't tolerate anything. We just react with vitriol. And if fans turn on Deshaun Watson, they weren't fans. Move on with it. The entire part of this game is that we're playing a team that's not very good, who has a quarterback who's not that well regarded. They're probably coming into this game knowing that the fan base is going to be a lot louder just because their former quarterback is back after these circumstances. And he's going to have to play through that. And he's going to have to play through that every day for the rest of his life. That's what bad judgment does. You make yourself a better person and you live a cleaner life. Lots of people rehabilitate themselves. But with the way people are acting today, there are no second chances. And that's the unfortunate nature of all of this. It's really pathetic. I wanted to share one more story. And I want to see if I can find this story. Maybe not. Yeah, here it is. This is great. Name of the article: How Deshaun Watson's Return Affects Sexual Assault Survivors and How Clevelanders Can Support Them. Are you being serious? So now, sexual assaults that occurred 20 years ago, Deshaun Watson is responsible for them too? Listen to this nonsense, this gobbledygook. Silent survivors make note of these moments. It reinforces their fear of disbelief. Their unease is exacerbated when doubt is expressed by people they know, like your favorite Browns fan. This particular therapist is saying a cognitive dissonance develops among fan bases when one of their team's players is accused of assault. There's this: I want to believe that I'm a good person who values justice and accountability and values survivors, but I'm also a Browns fan. So I need to disbelieve this in order to make this other thing okay, to cheer for this person. You know, this is the sickness of people. I am not cheering for one person. The team is one entity, and I'm cheering for that team. I cheered for the Cleveland Indians knowing full well who Albert Bell was and what problems that he had. But I like the team. There are bad people in the world. There are people who are messed up in the world. There always will be. If I had to pick and choose player by player by player to get to know who they are and what they stand for, I wouldn't cheer for anybody. This notion that there is a triggering from other sexual assault victims just by looking at Deshaun Watson is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in my life. The story goes like this. The 24 women stepped forward. They did what they were supposed to do. They stood up for themselves. They didn't have a strong enough case for a criminal case, but they went the civil route. And they got paid and settled, which means they will never be able to speak again about what happened. But here they are up in a booth and trying to lead the crowd on like Harry Carey. One more, take me out to the ball game. Wrong. Man has a right to earn himself a living. If he does not change his ways, then he does not have a right any longer to earn his living. Okay? But if seeing people who did bad things triggered people, we'd all be triggered and walking around with guns. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that differently. You understand what I'm saying. We all have a reason for being triggered for this and that and this and that. The bottom line is these 24 women said this is what justice is. This is what the law said. Justice is. Justice is served. That's it. That's it. What do I think is going to happen in the game? What do you think is going to happen in the game, chat room? I like the Browns. Even though I don't think they're going to be able to put up, I don't think there's going to be a lot of red zone efficiency. But I am curious to see what possibilities there are. For people who are wondering about the rest of the season, don't bother yourself. A plus 3,000 betting underdog. I mean, they're not going to go to the playoffs this year. There's no wiggle room. Too many games have been played and lost this year for no good reason for that to happen. Rick May is telling us 24-10 Browns. And, you know, I don't know. I'm going to say that Houston is going to score 20 points because we have a shitty defense. And I'm going to say that Cleveland scores 23 points and gets it done. As long as Bojorquez isn't holding the potential winning kick. What's important this week is what's important every week. The defense has to come ready to play. We've got to play as close to error-free football as we possibly can. And we have to use our running game. We have to use the clock to our advantage. We have to tire them out and make them understand they're playing a better football team than they are. And once they believe that, winning will become a whole hell of a lot easier. (23-20) Cleveland, and I don't look at this as a morality play. All that happens is it buys you the right, win or lose, to play the following week. That's it. And Double P brings up a point. Yeah. If they can run the football against our defense, which God only knows so many others have, then this is a week where you got to let the quarterback beat you. Because if you let the running game beat you, you got all kinds of problems. All kinds of problems. Double P is saying 24-21. Ron Shane is coming in with his prediction. 34-17. We are the better team. I think that's pretty obvious, but if you don't play like it, it isn't so. There are games that we've played well and played clean games, and then there are other games where just slack-jawed indifference, confusion, you name it. It's been all over the board. All over the board. You can continue if there's anyone else in the chat room want to put your scores up. I apologize again for the lack of quality in this stream. I don't see it on my end because I'm just looking at my live image on the studio. As has it stopped freezing, or has it continued to freeze in the first 40 throughout the first 40 minutes of this program? Please let me know in the chat room. I would appreciate it. The other thing is the Cavaliers. And there is a wicked flu going around in Ohio. I'm in Florida, so I don't have to tell you that because I live down here. If you're in Northeast Ohio, you know what the situation is. But the flu is nasty. And the NBA players coming to town, every team that leaves Cleveland is taking that with them to their next destination. It's hitting teams all over the league where they barely have enough bodies to get through the game. Teams are bringing up G League players like the Cavaliers did, Diakite, and Isaiah Mobley, just bringing people up and down from the G League just to have sufficient bodies on the bench in case somebody gets hurt or if somebody fouls out or whatever. Thanks, Rick. Not exactly what I want to hear. And I'm pixelated as well. Wonderful. They're destroying the quality of my stream. And this I don't understand at all. And again, I'm going to do what I've done so I can report this. Pardon me while I do this. I'm going to run the most difficult speed test of all, doing a live program at the same time, knowing that, my computer is working hard here. I'm going to see exactly. We have a ping of 17 milliseconds and a signal of download, which is now up to about 280, 279. I mean, this is not the stuff of that at all, freezing up. This has nothing to do. And we're sitting at about 15, which is lower upload than what we would normally have, but we're uploading some stuff as we do this. So there you have it. I just wanted to make sure that this was the case. And culpability, if it's my fault, I want to know. If it's my setup, I want to know. Let's see what else. Double P is saying the members of his family got sick with this flu. It's bad news. And after what happened in our last basketball game, I'm like, what happened to Embiid? What happened to the 76ers? And where did Tobias Harris go at halftime? Never came back into the game. And he couldn't score. He couldn't do anything. He looked a lot like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland did a couple games before, where they just couldn't perform whatsoever. And it turned out now he's on the non-COVID illness. And this is happening all over the league. Embiid was horrible by Embiid standards. No one on the team looked good. And you're going to see Philadelphia really shorthanded. And a friend of mine looked it up, and they are. I think they can only field like 8 men, maybe 9. The rest of their roster is nowhere to be found because of the illness. Cavaliers have an opportunity not just to give the flu virus to the future opponents of the Orlando Magic. We're going to get a look at Paolo Banchero again. He's a good young basketball player, averaging about 22.7 points per game. Hans Wagner or Franz Wagner? Franz Wagner. That sounds right. He's good. He slashed us the last time we played. He was coming down the paint and was doing a job on us in the first half of the game. And they have Bol, who is finding his way in the league, Manute Bol's son, and he's finding a long-range shot and finding a mid-range game as well and going to the basket. They're 5-17 this year. They're only 1-9 on the road. They have not won in foreign buildings. We're 9-1 in our building. I would say everything is okay. The Cavaliers, we still not going to have Jared Allen in the game. but it is what it is. I believe we're getting Lamar Stevens back finally from that flu. It can be a long-lasting problem for some people. And, we'll see what happens. Kevin Love is doubtful. And with his situation, with his thumb on his shooting hand, it's pain tolerance. Either he can handle it or he can't. That's the deal there. I still don't think that come game time, I don't think he's going to play. Mark Lewis, do I think Ohio State can still make the playoffs? I can't be two-faced about this. Being a long-term Ohio resident in my life, and I know how important Ohio State football is to people in the state of Ohio. You had your opportunity against the best team that you played, and you laid an egg. You got bitch slapped. That's the bottom line. Got your ass cooked. And you're only as good as the last thing you did. That is, what's left in the pollster's eyes. I suppose something could fall out if Purdue were to pull an upset or whatever in these this weekend's games. But I'm not thinking that's going to happen. And Ohio State, for better or worse, that 11-0 record was based upon playing some pretty weak competition. And when they played a better football team, they just were beaten down to a pulp. I don't think they deserve it. I mean, all these years I screamed when Notre Dame was getting, rated high, when they're beating Army and Navy and Air Force, and the one tough game on their schedule, whoever it would be, whether it would be Penn State or whoever, and they'd lose that game, I say, you're not. If you're beating up on Iowa, who cares? You got to win that Michigan game. That's what it amounts to. And I don't know. Could they make the playoffs? I suppose it's possible. This is a money deal. We already just found a headline that says come 2024, 2025 season, that 12 teams will make the playoffs. Money talks, Johnny Manziel fans, and bullshit walks. I think they'll do whatever is best for the finances and the coffers of college football. But, yeah, we wouldn't be talking about that if there were 12 teams, We wouldn't be even worried about it. One loss wouldn't mean a damn thing. But to me, it does mean something. The Cavaliers, I'm thinking, are going to win tonight, and I'm going to say 112 points, which is what the Cavaliers basically, I think the Cavs average 116. But taking into account that Jared Allen's not going to be there, 112 to 104, they will beat the Orlando Magic and hopefully keep this thing going up to the record of 15-8, which, they're playing at a pace right now to win about 49 games this year, and they're showing some real dominance on their home floor. So you couldn't ask for much more than that. I'm done. I've said everything I wanted to say, and I'm really sick of this stream. I'm pissed off, and I'm going to have to get the people on StreamYard on this thing because something isn't right. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. We're going to be back on Sunday, as always, with a halftime show and a postgame show, and we'll be talking in depth about how Deshaun Watson looks and how the team looks around him. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.